here today with Mitch Earle, author of Discovering Self-Worth Through Love Lost. So, Mitch, I'm glad to have you.
Thank you.
I kind of want to start off by you just telling me a little bit about your book, why you wrote it.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Well, I wrote it not intending it to be a book. I wrote it because I was going through a breakup of a relationship that I thought was the love of all loves. This was when I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was the most traumatic emotional experience I'd ever gone through. And being a writer, I was a legal journalist at the time, very left brain, very serious kind of guy. What I knew to do to express my emotions, which were a lot more limited than they are now in terms of their expression, was to write. Writers write. And so I journaled, and I journaled my anger, I journaled my feelings of love, joy, just this panoply of emotions. And I had, tens and then probably hundreds of pages of handwritten journals that allowed me to begin the process of catharsis when you break up with someone, especially when that breakup involves the person that you thought was your love of all loves. And I'd never experienced anything on that emotionally traumatic level before. And what I came to understand is that given the God-given gifts of communication through writing and through speaking, that maybe I didn't go through these experiences only for myself and only for my own healing. Maybe I'm also a vessel and vehicle through which other people can hear the same experiences and conditions and situations and say, wait a minute, I'm going through that. I just broke up with someone like that. Maybe I need to read that. Or, oh gosh, self-worth. Gosh, I wish I had more, but and just be able to relate to those two main themes of self-worth and the appearance of losing love. We don't actually lose love, but it feels like we've lost it at the time. And so I decided to go forward with it and bring it from the, journals in the closet to out in the world, because there was something inside me that just continued to say, get this out there. There are people that are going to give themselves permission to heal by virtue of reading what you went through. I do know on some level how to do anything, as does anybody. And so when I shifted into, maybe this is something more than just about Mitch Earle personally, then I saw this as, I had a different stance, a different perspective. I realized that I can look at this as, okay, now how am I going to allow this to get out to other people who are out there, in effect saying, I really need to read your book.
But as a man, writing a book with such emotion and such vulnerability, how do you feel about that? How do you respond when people ask you that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. As we touched on earlier, women that I've talked to just tend to I don't know if melt is the right word, but they tend to raise their hand to their heart and say, oh gosh, they're really, no, I think you all really know something that is integrated that men are still learning, and that is that integration of left and right brain, that meshing of intellect and emotion. And as I say, just in a demonstrative way, often I see women, when they see the title of the book or when I mention what I've done, in terms of getting this out to the world, is they put their hand on their heart reflexively and they say, oh gosh, in effect, I didn't really know that there were men who could be strong and also this sensitive and just that expressive and that vulnerable with their feelings. And so there's poetry in the book. There's, it's a journal.
If more men knew that, they wouldn't have women issues, because that's what we women want.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. But guys have this image of what they see on TV with the, particular beer commercials and football games, and so, I got to hold this bravado here. And it's like the women I've met and that I'm continuing, I'm certainly desiring to attract that love of all loves in my life, and I'm claiming that for myself. But every woman that I've dated who is into self-growth and into communication about issues like this says, vulnerability is a turn on. I want someone who's vulnerable. I want someone who's communicative. I want someone who can be themselves. And I don't want this cardboard image stock character.
So. What made you choose Lulu as a publishing company versus a traditional publishing company?
Right. Well, ironically, at this very festival of books, one book review editor that I spoke with, who's head of a major newspaper in this country and in the world, world-renowned newspaper, has a policy at their paper that they will not review a book that has been self-published. And there's obviously a stereotype and a prejudgment that there has to be an equation of, HarperCollins or Penguin or whatever imprint, a traditional commercial, generally Northeast U.S. publisher, to equal good or to equal bestseller, to equal something that we're interested in. And if it's self-published, the prejudice is that I've experienced is that, well, it can't be that good, or else you would have gone to a commercial publisher, and if you had to do it yourself, that must have been a last resort. This was my first resort. This was my first resort, because I didn't want to wait 18 months, and I didn't want to have, all the editorial control with somebody else, and you deciding my fate, and not getting this, and saying, okay, well, here in the Northeast, we believe this, so, well, who cares what y'all are doing in California? This is the way a book needs to be. It's like, how do you know that? Yeah. Who says? According to who? According to whom? So Lulu provides that opportunity. My experience has been that Lulu provides that opportunity, again, as a vessel and a vehicle to get a work out there. And it's not about saying, okay, well, we need to see if we're going to accept you. We're not sure if you're worthy. You need to pay us a lot of money. It's not about that. There's very little investment financially. It's a process that, for me, is highlighted on the website itself with the ability to live talk. And so I'm in conversation, and I've gone all hours of the day and night, and there is somebody that has live support that I'm talking with. It's excellent. It's excellent. And so there is that, what feels like a personal connection. And yes, it's online, and it's not a conversation we're having in person, but it's the next best thing when I'm in California and someone else is on the other end of the country. And so there is that outreach, and there is that willingness, from what I experienced through Lulu, to have as many people succeed as possible. That my success is your success as Lulu, and vice versa.
Tell us one thing. After someone reads this book, one thing that you would want them to go home with, to leave with, to maybe share with others.
Yeah, thank you. Well, clearly the title being Discovering Self-Worth Through Love Lost, One Man's Journey, self-worth is just absolutely at the root of the book, and I think at the root of life for so many people. So if I had to boil it down to one thing, it's certainly the major theme of the book, and it would be that through someone reading, whether it's male or female, reading this book, that although they're reading my story with particular characters about Lori being the protagonist, and Troy and Alex and certain names, and in Atlanta, Georgia, that's my story. But everyone else has their story too.
That's relatable.
Absolutely. And so I truly believe that virtually everyone has gone through experiences of what feels like losing love, and also those feelings of not being worthy enough, saying, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if I can talk to this person, I don't know if I can do this play. And so this book, and just being, as I said earlier, the catharsis for myself, and being from the journal, it is right from the heart. I wasn't trying to do this for anyone, I was doing this for myself. But I absolutely believe that there is a lot of universality in my story, in other words, the story that I just experienced and that I wrote about here, so that other people can say, wow, what I read here, this poem that you happen to include, or the particular episode where you're at a car dealer or talking to a boss with unequal bargaining power, or just the breakup itself that I'm experiencing now. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for being vulnerable, because it allowed me to put in context and to help me to heal through a relationship or through this issue of self-worth that I'm working on. So that core issue of self-worth is not just core to the book, but absolutely what I'm wanting to give as a gift of compassion and of connection through publishing. Yeah.
Well, I thank you, Mitch. I thank you for
Absolutely.
being vulnerable. And
Thank you.
being emotional and not being afraid to go out on a limb and
Thank you.
and take the step.
Thank you.
It's the best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks very much.